I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I thought 9 years with someone meant something. I thought being the responsible older sister would protect me from the worst kind of heartbreak. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment I discovered my golden child sister Isabella was pregnant with my boyfriend Marcus's baby. And what my family asked me to do afterward. It still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Before I dive into this story, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel. And trust me, you will not believe what they asked me to do after everything that happened. Growing up in our household, the roles were crystal clear from day one. I was Lydia, the responsible one born to clean up messes and smooth over rough edges. Isabella was the shining star 3 years younger and absolutely everything our parents had ever dreamed of in a daughter. While I spent my childhood being told to set a good example, Isabella got away with breaking curfew, failing classes, and treating our house like a hotel with maid service. Do not get me wrong. I loved my sister, but watching your parents light up when she walked into a room while barely acknowledging your presence gets old pretty fast. When Isabella wanted to go to art school, they paid her full tuition without blinking. When I needed help with community college, they handed me a stack of financial aid forms and told me responsibility builds character. Her birthday parties were elaborate affairs with professional photographers. Mine were family dinners, where the focus somehow always shifted back to Isabella's latest drama. But I had learned to find my worth elsewhere. That is where Marcus came in. We met during my senior year at the local state university where I was working 2 jobs to pay for my degree in accounting. Marcus was 28, a software engineer with the kind of steady reliability that made my heart feel safe for the first time in years. He saw me for who I was, not just as Isabella's older sister or my parents' backup plan. Our relationship grew slowly built on late-night study sessions that turned into deep conversations about our futures. Marcus appreciated my work ethic, my loyalty, my ability to see problems from all angles. He never made me feel like I was competing for attention or affection. For 9 beautiful years, he was my constant. We traveled together, bought a small house together, talked about marriage and children and growing old together. When he met my family, he was polite to Isabella, but never showed any special interest in her. She was just his girlfriend's little sister. But about 2 months ago, something shifted. Marcus started working late more often, his texts became shorter, and our usual weekend traditions began falling by the wayside. When I asked about it, he would kiss my forehead and mumble something about a big project at work. I trusted him completely, so I pushed down the nagging feeling that something was wrong. Meanwhile, Isabella had been acting strange too. She stopped dropping by unannounced avoided family dinners, and when she did show up, she seemed nervous and distracted. The first crack in my perfect world came on a Tuesday afternoon when I was running errands downtown. I decided to grab coffee at Marcus's favorite spot, thinking I might surprise him since his office was nearby. That is when I saw them. Marcus and Isabella sitting in a corner booth, leaning close together in intense conversation. Isabella was crying, and Marcus was reaching across the table to comfort her. My feet felt glued to the sidewalk as I watched my boyfriend of 9 years consoling my sister in a way that looked far too intimate for what should have been a casual encounter. I stood there for 10 minutes, telling myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Maybe Isabella was having problems with her latest boyfriend. Maybe she had asked Marcus for advice about surprising me with something. But when I got home and casually asked Isabella how her day had been, she looked me straight in the eye and said she had spent the afternoon at the library studying. The lie hit me like a physical blow. Sleep became impossible after that coffee shop incident. I found myself analyzing every interaction between Marcus and Isabella over the past few months, searching for clues I might have missed. The more I thought about it, the more suspicious details emerged. Isabella had been looking pale lately, complaining about feeling sick, but brushing off suggestions to see a doctor. Marcus had developed a habit of checking his phone constantly, then quickly putting it away when I got too close. I did something I had never done in 9 years of being together. I decided to follow Marcus. It felt disgusting and wrong, but the alternative was slowly going insane with doubt. 3 days of careful observation revealed a pattern that made my stomach turn. Every Tuesday and Thursday after work, instead of coming home, Marcus drove to the neighborhood near Isabella's apartment. He would park 2 blocks away and walk, always taking the same route. The day I finally worked up the courage to check his phone, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. Marcus was in the shower, and his phone was charging on the nightstand. What I found was worse than any explicit messages. There were no messages at all. His text history with Isabella, which should have shown years of casual birthday wishes and family event coordination, was completely empty. Someone had been deleting everything. But Isabella could not hide the physical signs that were becoming more obvious every day. She had always been a foodie, but suddenly she was turning green at the smell of coffee and rushing to the bathroom during family dinners. The girl who used to devour spicy tacos was suddenly subsisting on crackers and ginger ale. When our mother asked if she was feeling okay, Isabella would change the subject or make excuses about stress from school. I confronted Marcus on a Friday night, choosing my words carefully to avoid sounding accusatory. I asked about his work schedule, about why he seemed so distracted lately, about whether everything was okay between us. His reaction told me everything I needed to know. Instead of reassuring me or asking why I was concerned, Marcus got defensive immediately. He accused me of being paranoid, of not trusting him after all these years of looking for problems where none existed. The fight escalated quickly. Marcus stormed out, saying he needed space to think about whether he wanted to be with someone who did not trust him. I spent that weekend convinced I had destroyed the best relationship of my life over paranoid delusions. When he came back Sunday evening with flowers and apologies, I felt terrible for doubting him. He promised to be more present, more communicative, more attentive to my needs. For about a week, things seemed better. But improvement did not last long, and my instincts kept screaming that something was still very wrong. The final piece of evidence came by complete accident. I was at the pharmacy picking up allergy medication when I spotted Isabella in the feminine products aisle. She was holding a pregnancy test, reading the instructions with the kind of careful attention that suggested this was not a casual purchase. I ducked behind the greeting cards and watched her buy not 1 but 3 different brands of tests. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode right there in the pharmacy. I followed Isabella at a distance as she walked to the nearby park, where she sat on a bench and made a phone call. Even from far away, I could see her body language was tense, upset. After about 10 minutes, a familiar figure approached the bench. It was Marcus. I watched in horror as my boyfriend of 9 years sat down next to my sister and pulled her into a comforting hug, his hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. The world tilted sideways as I crouched behind a tree, trying to process what I was seeing. Marcus was speaking softly to Isabella, gesturing with his hands in a way that suggested they were making plans or discussing options. Isabella nodded, wiped her eyes, and then they both stood up. Before parting ways, Marcus kissed her forehead gently, the same way he used to kiss mine when I was worried or upset. I could not move for 30 minutes after they left. Families walked past me, children played on the swings. Life continued normally while mine imploded in slow motion. 9 years of memories flashed through my mind. Every vacation photo, every anniversary dinner, every time Marcus had told me he loved me. Had any of it been real? How long had this been going on? When had my sister and my boyfriend decided that my feelings simply did not matter? The drive home was a blur. I sat in my driveway for another 20 minutes, trying to figure out how to walk into my own house and pretend everything was normal. When I finally went inside, Marcus was cooking dinner like nothing had happened. He smiled at me, asked about my day, and started talking about weekend plans. I mumbled responses and excused myself to take a shower, where I finally let myself break down completely. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Marcus slept peacefully beside me. How could he sleep so soundly while carrying such a massive secret? I thought about confronting them immediately, but something held me back. Maybe I needed more concrete proof. Maybe I needed to prepare myself for what came next. Or maybe I just was not ready to hear the words that would officially end my life as I knew it. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own life. I noticed things I had been blind to before. The way Isabella avoided eye contact during family dinners. How Marcus always seemed to know details about Isabella's life that she had not shared with anyone else. The subtle changes in their body language when they were in the same room. They were trying to act normal, but once you knew what to look for, the signs were everywhere. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I decided to force the truth into the open. Consequences be damned. I planned what I thought would be a simple family dinner, inviting both Marcus and Isabella over to our parents' house. I told everyone I had something important to discuss, letting them assume it was about our long-awaited engagement announcement. Instead, I had printed out the photos I had taken at the park and prepared a timeline of all the suspicious behavior I had documented. When everyone was seated around the familiar dining room table, where we had shared countless family meals, I took a deep breath and placed the evidence in front of them. The silence that followed was deafening. Isabella turned white as a sheet and started crying immediately. Marcus tried to deny it, at first claiming the photos were taken out of context, that he was just helping Isabella with a personal problem. But the truth has a way of demanding to be heard. Under pressure from our shocked parents, Isabella finally broke down and admitted everything. She was 3 months pregnant with Marcus's baby. It had started 4 months ago when she was going through a difficult breakup and had called Marcus for advice. One conversation led to another. Emotional support turned into something more, and before either of them realized what was happening, they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Marcus tried to explain himself, talking about how distant we had grown, how he felt unappreciated and taken for granted. He claimed it was never meant to happen, that it was a mistake born out of loneliness and confusion. Isabella sobbed through her own explanation, saying she never meant to hurt me, that she knew it was wrong, but felt powerless to stop it once it started. The most devastating part was not just the betrayal itself, but the realization that while I had been planning our future, they had been planning their secret. While I was working extra hours to save money for our wedding, they were meeting in secluded places to discuss their affair. While I was defending Marcus to concerned friends who thought he seemed distant, he was already building a new life that did not include me. What happened next defied every expectation I had about how my family would react to such devastating news. Instead of the righteous anger I anticipated, instead of demands for accountability and justice, my parents' first concern was damage control. Not for me, not for my broken heart or destroyed future, but for Isabella and the family's reputation. My mother immediately went into crisis management mode. She held Isabella while my sister cried, stroking her hair and making soothing sounds like she was comforting a child who had accidentally broken a vase rather than deliberately destroyed her sister's life. My father paced the room, muttering about figuring this out and finding a solution. Marcus sat in stunned silence, probably realizing for the first time that his actions had consequences beyond his immediate desires. Within an hour, the conversation had shifted from holding anyone accountable to protecting Isabella from the unfortunate situation she found herself in. My mother kept referring to my sister as just a baby herself, conveniently ignoring the fact that Isabella was 23 years old and had made a series of calculated choices that led to this moment. The narrative being constructed painted Isabella as a naive victim of Marcus's manipulation, despite the fact that she had lied to my face repeatedly and actively participated in deceiving me for months. Phone calls were made to relatives not to inform them of the truth, but to start building a story that would minimize embarrassment for our family. The focus was entirely on what would happen to Isabella's future, her education, her prospects for marriage with someone else eventually. Marcus, meanwhile, was treated more like an inconvenient complication than a person who had betrayed someone he claimed to love for 9 years. As the family meeting stretched into the evening, it became clear that everyone expected this situation to be resolved through logistics and planning rather than consequences and accountability. Isabella announced that she wanted to keep the baby, which immediately triggered another round of concerned discussions about her future. Marcus, when pressed about his intentions, admitted that while he cared about Isabella, he was not in love with her and was not ready to become a husband and father. That is when my mother presented the solution that made me question everything I thought I knew about my own family. She suggested, with the casual tone of someone planning a dinner menu, that Marcus and I should go ahead with our planned marriage, as originally intended. We would simply raise the baby as our own, telling everyone that we had decided to start our family a little earlier than expected. Isabella could finish school without the stigma of being a single mother, the family would avoid embarrassment, and everyone could move forward with their lives intact. My father immediately endorsed this plan with enthusiasm, proud of his wife for thinking of such a practical solution. Isabella looked hopeful for the first time all evening, clearly relieved at the prospect of escaping responsibility for her choices. Most shockingly, Marcus actually seemed to consider it seriously, nodding as my parents outlined how this arrangement could benefit everyone involved. As they talked through the logistics of this insane proposal, treating me like a piece of furniture that could be moved around to suit their needs, I felt something inside me break apart and reform into something harder and sharper. These people, who I had loved and trusted and prioritized for my entire life, were discussing how to use me as a convenient solution to a problem they had all created without my input or consent. My mother explained how I had always been so good with children, so responsible and nurturing. My father pointed out that I had a stable job and a mature outlook that would serve me well as a young mother. Isabella actually had the audacity to say that she knew I would love the baby as my own because I had always been such a caring sister to her. Marcus suggested we could even try to work through what had happened between him and Isabella, implying that I should simply forgive and forget one of the most profound betrayals imaginable. The room fell completely silent when I finally spoke up. I looked around at these people who shared my DNA, who had raised me, who claimed to love me, and realized that they had never truly seen me as a complete person with my own needs and desires. I was a tool to them, useful for managing problems and absorbing consequences, but never worthy of protection or prioritization when it really mattered. I told them no, not just no to their ridiculous proposal, but no to everything that had led us to this moment. No to years of being treated as the responsible one who should sacrifice for everyone else's comfort. No to the expectation that I should absorb the consequences of other people's selfish choices. No to a relationship with someone who could betray me so fundamentally and then expect me to help him escape accountability for his actions. The reaction to my refusal was immediate and intense. My mother accused me of being selfish and vindictive, unable to see past my own hurt to do what was best for the family. My father suggested I was being emotional and irrational, that I would see the wisdom of their plan once I had time to think clearly. Isabella begged me to reconsider, promising that she would be grateful forever, and that this could bring our family closer together. Marcus incredibly seemed the most surprised by my response. He actually looked hurt that I would not even consider the possibility of working through our problems. He talked about our 9 years together, like they were an investment I would be foolish to abandon over one mistake. He suggested that couples overcome infidelity all the time, that we could be stronger if we chose to forgive and rebuild. The fact that this was not just infidelity, but infidelity with my sister resulting in a pregnancy he wanted me to help him cover up, seemed to escape him entirely. I explained to all of them as calmly as I could manage that I was done being the family's solution to problems I had not created. I was done sacrificing my happiness for everyone else's convenience. I was done being treated like my feelings, and future mattered less than maintaining appearances or avoiding difficult conversations. I told Marcus to pack his things and find somewhere else to live by the end of the week. I told my family that I needed space to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted to have with people who could ask such things of me. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life, but also the most clarifying. I started seeing a therapist who helped me understand the family dynamics that had shaped me into someone who automatically put everyone else's needs before my own. I learned about golden child syndrome and scapegoat roles, about families that assign worth based on compliance rather than inherent value. I began to understand that my capacity for love and loyalty had been weaponized against me. Moving forward was not easy. I had to rebuild my entire sense of identity outside the context of being Marcus's girlfriend or Isabella's responsible older sister. I had to learn how to make decisions based on what I wanted, rather than what would cause the least conflict. I had to develop the ability to enforce boundaries with people who had never respected them before. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Marcus and Isabella's relationship had fallen apart shortly after the baby was born. The reality of single parenthood and shared custody had not been the romantic adventure they imagined during their affair. Both of them had reached out to me separately, wanting to apologize and explain, but I was not ready to have those conversations. Maybe someday I would be, but healing had to come first. A year later, my life looked completely different. I had been promoted at work, developed new friendships with people who valued me for who I am, rather than what I could do for them, and started dating someone who understood that respect and honesty are not negotiable in a healthy relationship. My family occasionally tried to reconnect, usually when they needed something, or when family events made my absence conspicuous, but I had learned to evaluate those requests based on my own needs rather than their expectations. The most important thing I learned through this experience was that love should never require you to disappear. Real love, whether romantic or familial, should make you feel more like yourself, not less. It should add to your life rather than demand that you sacrifice essential pieces of who you are. When people truly care about you, they do not ask you to absorb the consequences of their poor choices, or to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Looking back now, I can see that the day my family asked me to raise my sister's baby with the man who betrayed me was actually a gift, though it certainly did not feel like one at the time. It forced me to confront the reality of how I had been valued and treated, and it gave me the opportunity to choose something different. It taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who cannot love you properly. I know some people might think I was too harsh, that family should forgive and find ways to move forward together, regardless of what happens. But I believe that forgiveness and boundaries can coexist, that you can wish someone well from a distance while protecting yourself from further harm. There are people in this world who will always see you as a supporting character in their story, never as the protagonist of your own. Learning to identify those people and limit their access to your life is not cruel. It is necessary. If you are watching this and recognizing yourself in my story, if you are the person everyone turns to when they need something fixed or cleaned up, if you have been told that your worth lies in your willingness to sacrifice for others, I want you to know that you deserve more. You deserve to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan. You deserve relationships that pour into you as much as you pour into them. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you can do. The question I want to leave you with is this: what would your life look like if you started prioritizing your own happiness with the same energy you have always used to protect everyone else's? What dreams have you put on hold to manage other people's crises? What boundaries do you need to set to protect your own peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories about navigating difficult relationships and finding your worth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their happiness matters too. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you are never too old, too late, or too damaged to choose yourself. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today.